Hey yo, how's it going everyone? Entropy here today with another video. Today we're going to talk about the all-new G Special deck that will be introduced on June 1st for JP. These will retail for 7,000 yen and will feature a good amount of stuff. So this video is for you if you're a new player, if you're a returning player that is interested in what an existing player with a somewhat competitive background would recommend to you. I will explain the values, the pros and cons of each deck for you to consider as well, and pick one of them. There's only 12, so it's an easier pick than the super decks, but I guess without further ado, let's get straight to it. So these G Special decks will include 2 GRs, which is the highest rarity for each unit. Then you have 16 triple rares, the second highest rarity, and then you have 4 heal guards in SP. So this is really cool because it's the first time we're ever going to get this. And then you also can purchase the deck strengthening, and this includes 1 set GR exchange ticket. You have 100 triple rare crystals, you have 500 double rare orbs, and 1,000 rare pieces. So if you get the deck strengthening support, it will help you further enhance your existing G Special deck, which is really cool. So now the big question is, and I have this question already, what qualifies for a returning player? Now obviously a fresh account is a new account, right? A new player, but a returning player is if your account has been completely dormant for the last 8 months. In other words, if you've logged in for anything past GSET 1, so if you played GSET 2, GSET 3, 4, 5, and anything up to now, you won't qualify. This is important because I personally think at a certain point, if you just joined like recently in the last month and you have nothing complete yet, I think it still is a good enough choice to restart just for this. I will discuss this better at the very end of the video. We're just going to go through the decks first and then discuss what I personally think is worth it or not. So let's talk about the contents. The GR exchange ticket, it includes from GSET 1 to GSET 6. So you still have a lot of staples from these sets, so this is really nice, especially since these special decks won't include all the GRs you need, so this is definitely a great place to start. And also Fighters Collection, I don't think Fighters Collection is that relevant, but definitely consider the GR ticket to exchange for something from the top 6 main G sets. So let's talk about the decks. So starting off with Gears, this is the main protagonist clan for the G era. This is obviously newly introduced for the G era. This one is decent. I think this is okay if you're a new player, but most existing players would, I don't think this deck is going to be very, very good. And it mixes support from 3 different sets. So GSET 1, you have stuff from set 4, and then some stuff from more recently, I believe. But overall, I think this deck is pretty janky, just because Gears just isn't really in a good place right now. But overall, it's a simple game plan. You have some removal, you have some multi-attacking, and it has synergy, so it's okay. But I wouldn't recommend it. I think it's okay. If you like the clan, you can pick it up. If you are whatever, I don't really care for any clans, I wouldn't pick this one up. The second one, Royals. Royals is definitely a meta clan, but is this a meta deck? I think it's not quite there. So the grade 1 slot's pretty good. You have your PGs, you have your Stridefodders, you have power scale and whatnot. The grade 2s are also pretty good. Blaster Blade retiring, Blaster Blade Spirits retiring, all that multi-attacking, whatever, superior calling, whatever shenanigans. Grade 3 slot is also pretty good. You have Altmal, you have Gansal, which returns to the deck, does some stuff. You have Alfred, which is Legion, which is great. But the grade 4 slots are pretty bad. And it's really unfortunate because Royals, the main deck, you can pass this through and you can argue for some of these picks for a competitive setting, but the grade 4 lineup is pretty bad. And the reason being is because Royal Paladins ask for basically a complete GR G-Zone. So this GR only has 2 GRs, this G-Zone only has 2 GRs. The other triple rare G units, these grade 4s, are pretty irrelevant, okay? So I think that's one of the weaknesses. If you compare to like next left and right to you, you will see, for example, Gears has much more variety. Royals, you have Aerial Altmile, which is a great card. Everything else, you know, your 4 of, your 2 of, Samuel, if you have something else, you would replace these units. That's the problem with the deck. Okay, but if you like the clan, if you don't think you will need to rely that much on like striding, I think this deck could be a good enough place to start as well. I just can't recommend it just because of the G zone, because there are just better decks. Next we have Neo Nectars. Now this deck is easy top deck, right? This is easily top deck. If you look at the tournament records, you will basically see this list, or sorry, units from this list. Obviously you would be playing heal guards or whatever, but you have everything you need to succeed, and that's insane for a free deck, right? Like if you look at the most recent tournament record, I think basically every single player brought something similar to this, right? So this is incredible value if you want to go into a competitive setting from scratch. This is the deck for you. Its mechanics are a little harder to grasp. You know, you have a lot of recycling, a lot of deck thinning. But if you have any experience in the TCG kind of background and you know what you're doing, then this is definitely very good. This is very good. Again, very good. I just have to keep repeating that. At this point of the video, if that's all you want, a recommendation, pick Neo Nectars. You can exit this video right now. If you want other options, then let's keep going. Shadow Paladin, my favorite clan, but unfortunately this deck is pretty below average, right? It has a very outdated strategy and lacks synergy. But I guess the GR is cool, but like if you're exchanging the whole deck for like one pair of GRs that frankly does not have as much pressure as some other decks at this point, I think you're wasting your resources like that. Like, so overall, it's edgy, I know, but like it doesn't really help. It's not very competitive, it's not very viable, and the new stuff that's coming out for Shadows, nothing much you really want from here, frankly, so I can't recommend this at all. Golds, I also don't think is that great. You only have stuff from one particular set, well, and some old stuff, G set 3, and some Easel stuff, some Spirit stuff, counterchargers, whatever, but it doesn't really have much synergy. It's really awkward. It doesn't know if it wants to be a Druid deck, it doesn't really know if it wants to be an Easel deck, and you just don't have a lot of, like, you don't have all the pieces you want for one deck or the other, which I think can be tough. And I think overall, like, the units are cool, but you just have other alternatives that are just better. I would say that out of the 3 Paladin clans though, Gold Paladin I think is the best out of all of them, just because even though the grade 3 lineup is a bit awkward, the grade 1s, grade 2s are pretty solid, and the grade 4s are actually viable. So that's that. And lastly, we have Angel Feathers. Angel Feathers is very close to what you would see in a competitive setting. It's pretty playable, but the question is, how much potential, how much value can you get out of this deck for like how much bang for your buck, right? Like the units are really solid, but they're going to be power prepped soon enough, and so because of that, I don't think that it's a great deck. If you like Angel Feathers, then you can go for it. It's a very defensive deck. You just, like, it's a mechanic. There's a GR. The GR here literally just says heal 1 damage. So if you like that kind of play, you can definitely go for it. You also have Legion support. You have Celestials to help you do some multi-attacking and whatnot. But overall, Celestials and all that stuff is going to be outdated very fast. And I don't think this variant of Angel Feathers will last. So with that, I don't think it's great, but it's good enough. It's good enough. Alright, just 6 more decks to go. We have Kagero. Easy deck to play, has the core pieces you want, but the problem is that there are already better alternatives that came out. So for example, the Pelacosity, you have a 9k on-hit countercharger. In the recent set, you already have an 11k on-hit countercharger. So, you know, there are cards, they're good cards, but there are already just better versions of them that you can access. One of the things I think that that this deck is great at, excels at, is simplicity, right? Kagero is all about retiring and managing your resources, and the deck teaches you that very, very well. You have counter chargers, you have counter blast 2 retires like Berserk, you have Blade Master, which just retires stuff on stride, you have stuff like Overlord, which just hits stuff, you have the Legend, and you have the Great. You just have a lot of good options. Your stride with Root Flare, which is decent, and your other strides are pretty mediocre, but they can still work decently well enough. So overall, I think that the Kagero deck is a very good pick if you're a completely new player and you just want something to start. You don't know what you want to play yet, but you want something that's easy to just learn the game. Kagero is the deck for you. Alright, next up you have Link Joker with the Messiah support. I think this is a good starting point for Messiah players. I think playing this out of the box will be a bit awkward, and new players will maybe struggle to learn about the timings and the combos that come out of this deck. Some of the picks are a little awkward, but overall, the issue with this deck is that you have a lot of wasted space again. The triple rare strides, they're cool, but they're not like necessary as compared to the GRs. And so because of the need of having a lot more GRs from previous sets, which will kind of like, you know, why are you like investing resources into old sets when you can invest it in new sets with power creep, right? I don't think it's that great, but if you like Messiah, if you like Link Joker, I think it's a good enough place to start. And we have Pale Moon here at the very right side. Pale Moon, I think, is pretty cool, right? It's a great introduction to Hari, but again, without the GRs, the deck can feel awkward, and I think that's like the gripe with decks like Royal Paladin, Link Joker, with Pale Moon. I think the problem isn't the main deck, the problem is the G zone, and that is definitely a struggle. And lastly, last 3 decks, we have Grand Blue, another easy top deck, right? It's playable out of the box. You have basically all the key pieces you want, and you do need some support here and there, but it has a great future ahead of it. You know, it has a lot of great support coming soon, and the strides that you get out of this this variety is very, very much good enough. It's good enough to just bring this to the ladder and get to Legend easily. Right. Bermuda, on the other hand, I'm a huge proponent of Bermuda. I think Bermuda is a pretty broken plan overall. I don't know if it's the case right now in the metagame, but previously, for a long time, it's been really solid. This deck, though, I don't think is good enough. Olivia is a great GR, but everything else is pretty meh. Like, your staples are good, you have your resist like Amelia, you have your Spica for multi-attacking, but Loris as a grade 3 is pretty mediocre, and it's not hard to basically build this deck because it's everything is basically from one set, G set 2, right? You have some stuff like Legion or like some of the Perla or whatever, but those aren't hard to pick up, and overall the deck out of the box is not that great. It's just not that great. I can't recommend this. You know, arguably maybe even the old super deck could be better just because it has some more of the pieces that you want, like the dual PGs or whatnot. I think if you get both the super decks and this, though, I think you have a pretty good deck. Now, lastly, we have Aquaforce. Lambros is still very strong. Lambros is a stride that when you have this is the 4th attack of that turn, you can restand units and attack more, which is really good. It also gives it extra power, so it scales up, which is amazing. And it has a very cohesive winning image, right? The cards tell you what they want to do. You know, you have cards that want 4th attack, you have cards that enable 4th attack. It's just really simple, very aggressive deck. I also think that this is a good enough place for new players to start. If multi-attacking is more your forte, then this is the deck for you. So it's a pretty solid deck. But out of these 12 decks, which ones would I recommend? Really, if I had to pick 3, these are the ones I would pick. First of all, Neonectars. Now, Neonectars, the reason why I picked this is because it is a really tanky deck. It helps you, it gives you card draw, it has resist, which lets you play a very defensive game. You have offensive pieces, multi-attacking enablers as well. And honestly, you don't need as much investment in this deck compared to others, right? Like out of this box, I think this is a very, very strong deck, and you have many sets to get support from, so it's really solid. In G set 2, which is one of the main supporting sets for Neonectars, you have access to some other GRs, and the great thing about those units is that they don't need Persona Flip, which means if you pull one GR, you can slot it into the deck. You don't need to pull one, reset, and then pull another. I think that's a huge distinction, and very, very important for new players is recognizing G Persona. It's a very expensive mechanic, and luckily Neonectars, their options, a lot of them don't require G Persona, which is great. Next, you have Granblue, which is again also a very easily top deck. You know, you have all the main pieces you want, but I think that it is just not in the best spot in the metagame. Like against most decks, it's very, very strong, but against the deck to its left, Neonectars, it can have a little trouble, right? It has trouble hitting those big defensive numbers. But overall, I think the deck is very cohesive. It has all the pieces you want from a Granblue deck, and the other pieces maybe you want to pick up, it's just one or two pieces out there. So I think it's also very easily recommended for you. And lastly, Aquaforce. I think this is just an easier deck to pick up. The first deck, Neonectars, is much more technical. You need to know how to to go through your deck. You need to know your timings for severe calling. You need to know your timings when you're committing some stuff. Counterblast management is key, and all that stuff. Granblue is also tricky because you have a lot of options, and it can get out of hand really fast. But if you have the experience, it can definitely be a very strong deck, you know. But the reason why I recommend Aquaforce is because the deck is very, very straightforward. Just multi-attack, get your 4 attacks in, maybe more, and then pressure, win the game, hit numbers, retire plus, blah, 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 and then that's GGWP. So I think because of the simplicity, because it also has that cohesiveness in the deck, has all the units you kind of want to play with to start, it's definitely recommended for me. And it is not as competitive as the first 2 decks, but it is still a very viable deck and has really solid core. Lastly, if you really want to play one other deck, maybe Kagero, but again, the G zone really hurts it. That's why I can't recommend it. But overall, I think it's an easy to play deck as well to start off. But that's basically it. Personally, I think that these 3 decks are very high value for most players, right? Like recently, the rank rewards has been complete garbage, right? Like most of them are just clan event units. So there's not much value in grinding a rank. There's a reason why there's just a lot of drop in activity lately. This is definitely for players. I think if you haven't logged in, if you haven't really been playing that much, right? And if you don't have anything that resembles these decks, I think definitely can consider making a new account. Even if you do have a main account, you can consider just making alt accounts, right? Like just making new accounts just for the sake of testing these decks. You can always keep your main account. You can always make a new account on the side, and then, you know, pick one of these decks out, give it a try, and then think about how it compares to your main account. Because frankly, if you're a competitive player, like honestly, you wouldn't even consider picking these up, right? Like you're not going to consider refreshing your account to pick these up just for the sake of 2 GRs or whatever. But if you're a new player, or if you are not very active, you're really ambivalent, you sometimes log in, sometimes don't, you don't really rank or whatever, so you don't have a lot of resources, and none of your decks are really up to date, then I definitely would recommend restarting a new account and picking up Neonectars or Granblue, or Aquaforce, I guess. So that's basically it. Just to clarify, I definitely will put Neonectars and Granblue ahead of all the decks by a huge margin. But I think that if you had to pick a third, Aquaforce is fine as well. And there are other decks that are fine, but definitely it's Neonectars or Granblue if you have any experience with the game, whether that's a TCG or Zero. So that's basically it. Let me know down below if you could pick one, which one would it be and why? Is there a deck that I slept on? You know, maybe there is, because all of this is my personal opinion. So let me know down below. Thank you so much to the members, Kamui, ZBD, you have 2Mellow and Casey for supporting the channel by being members. And if you like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already and want to see more. But that is basically it. So yeah, let me know if you can maybe grab a friend or two to try out this game in the coming month. I think this is definitely a great place to start. This is coming out to JP on June, so Global is 2 months behind, so I would expect this to come to Global in August if things go to plan. One thing to note is that Global did get the Super Decks, the previous variant of these special decks, the Super Decks, a month earlier compared to JP, so maybe we'll get these earlier for Global, but I think August is a reasonable expectation. So consider, I think that's a pretty good timing. It's summer and all that, so maybe grab a friend or two and try out this game. And definitely really good place to start. I can't believe it, and I don't think most people have, and good for them. So that's basically it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy. I hope you pick up one of these decks and give it a spin. So yeah, that's it. Thank you so much, and stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.